from the Green Bay 20. Cousins is going to loop one right. Caught. Touchdown! Jordan Addison with his 7th National Football League touchdown. That gives Minnesota a 23-3 lead.
All right. Hey, Vikings fans. Welcome into another episode of the Skol Hop.
Hello.
Evan.
I'm Austin.
And we're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, and we like talking about the Vikings.
Yeah.
What are we drinking today?
Well, first off,
Skol.
Today we have from Bettendorf's own Adventurous Brewing their Citraculture, which is a double dry hopped IPA, I believe. 6.5%, so it can hold its own. Evan, you got the beautiful can right there.
There it is.
We're not drinking it out of the can because we started something new. We're on TikTok, and we're going to do a quick teaser review, I think, of each beer that we have for every
I
episode.
think that's the plan.
I definitely stole that idea from probably tons of people who do it on TikTok, but specifically, and of course, I can't think of his name. I think it's Craft Beer Pete.
That's right. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so thank you, TikToker Craft Beer Pete, for the idea. Hopefully you feel honored if you ever hear about this at all and not ripped off that we're stealing your idea. But yeah, check us out on TikTok. We're doing some reviews. Evan's really good at posting up some cool replays of awesome games recently. But specifically this beer. It's as it has been the last handful of weeks, it's a beer that hits right in my favorite category, that citrusy, hazy IPA. I think it looks fantastic in these football glasses, and it's probably my favorite beer from Adventurous Brewing. I get it every time I go there, so
it's a good one for sure. And I like IPAs. I'm not opposed to them.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna drink an IPA, though, I want it to have a clean finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this one does just that.
Yeah.
It's dry, it's crisp, it's clean, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also juicy and citrusy, and I don't know. It checks a lot of those boxes.
I feel like it's simple,
that category.
and it's so simple that it works perfectly. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I would be very sad if Adventurous ever stopped brewing this beer. I don't think they ever could. Please don't.
Well, there are definitely some sad things to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about some happy things before we get to the real stuff.
Well, let's talk about the fact that the Vikings are on a winning streak
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So
4-1 in the month of Kirktober.
that's right.
It'll probably be the last month of Kirktober, maybe, in Vikings history. I know you got a good talking point later.
We're gonna save that for a little bit down the road, but yeah, we'll get to that.
I hope it's not the last Kirktober we celebrate as Vikings fans. I don't think Kirk will be done for his career. It's a weird timing with his contract and everything like that.
It certainly is.
But
We'll
yeah,
talk about that.
4-1 in the month of October, which is awesome. We probably talked on this podcast. I was probably very pessimistic about how they're not going to do that.
Well, after you go 0-3, there's not much to be optimistic about.
No, not at all. I watched Kwesi, the GM. He had a 15-minute press conference today being Wednesday when we record. 15-minute press conference, answered a bunch of questions. I've been back and forth on what I think of Kwesi, but every time I hear him talk, I like him more. I've never wanted him gone as a Vikings GM. I've always kind of been cautiously hesitant to see how I feel about him. I'm liking him more and more. His press conference today, he was very, very thoughtful. Even questions that you could tell he didn't already have a planned answer for. He didn't have to sit and think forever. He gave a good, honest, and genuine answer, and it made me feel good about the team moving forward.
He seems very intelligent.
Absolutely.
Very intelligent. And not just from a football IQ standpoint, but just from a businessman standpoint, and also just from a relational human standpoint. And I think that's one of the reasons why this organization is the way that it is. Only a few short years after the Rick Spielman Mike Zimmer era.
I mean, we're not even 2 years away from that era. We still have Spielman and Zimmer's hands all over this organization, as you will, because they were here for so long.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely, to that point, for me at least, it feels very much like we are in a new era, even though there's remnants of the previous regime. We're in a new era, and maybe you don't agree completely, not you, Evan, but you, the Vikings fan out there. Maybe you don't always agree completely with Kwesi's decisions and what he does and might not do, but especially watching that press conference, which is on par with every other time he speaks, you can tell he's not just going by the seat of his pants here. He's very thoughtful and very analytic, which is kind of a hot word when you talk about Kwesi, but he puts a lot of thought and effort into every step he takes for this organization, and I appreciate that.
And I'd say if you're a casual, just like Twitter person, like I would consider myself to be somewhat of an observer on Twitter and not so much a participant.
Mm-hmm.
You scroll all the Vikings Twitter, and there are just dozens and dozens of people ripping Kwesi apart, especially in the wake of what happened this last week. And, drafting Jaron Hall in the first place got a lot of criticism, and then bringing Josh Dobbs in on this trade that happened just a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I don't know. There's a lot of criticism flying around, and I just kept thinking to myself as an observer, like, we don't know what's gonna happen. Like, who knows? Jaron Hall could end up being the Tom Brady that comes in relief of Drew Bledsoe. Who knows?
You never know.
And Josh Dobbs could be the trade that means the world to the Vikings and pushes us into the playoffs after going 0-3.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
I think about it this way. In 2017, I think it was, Case Keenum. He was a late offseason signing, barely made the news. He was probably going to be competing, I believe, with Taylor Heineke for the third quarterback spot, when he came in. Heineke, a name to remember for this upcoming week against the Falcons. But we had our QB1 in Sam Bradford, who was coming off a good year with the Vikings. I think at the time he set the record for completion percentage.
I think that's right.
As a quarterback, and I think that record has since been broken.
No, I think he still holds.
Does he? I thought it was he broke Drew Brees' record, and then Brees broke it again.
Sorry, I thought you were talking franchise record. I still think he holds the franchise record.
Yeah,
for completion percentage.
But again, on that point, we didn't even remember, might not have even heard that Case Keenum was signed. And then, Bradford went down and, tear everything down. The season's over. And then especially that first start of Case Keenum, I think it was against the Steelers, Vikings lost pretty bad. And, this team's going to win like 2 more games the rest of the season. And what happened? I mean,
Minneapolis Miracle, baby.
A miraculous season capped off by a miraculous play, and one that we as Vikings fans will never forget. Now, unfortunately, there are still some Vikings fans that are clamoring for the Vikings to do everything they can to get Case Keenum again. It was a fun, awesome season. I don't think Keenum was ever that guy. He gave us a lot of great memories, and
there was quite the laundry list of quarterbacks that were recommended to the Vikings everywhere, Twitter, wherever else you interact.
Yep.
Social media wise, but Twitter was probably our primary source of that banter. But man, I heard everything from Case Keenum, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Let's call him and just make sure it's a no.
And who knows? Maybe they did. We'll never know.
Yeah. Well, and Kevin O'Connell was quoted saying at some point, like, you should have seen the messages that I had on my phone.
That
like, wouldn't believe.
That would be fun to see.
It would be. It would be.
And to that point, I think Kwesi in his press conference today, somebody asked him a question along these lines, and he said something to the tune of, when you have a quarterback injury, suddenly your phone is like the most popular phone in the Twin Cities. And he said, between players that are interested in coming to the Vikings and their agents and teams that are gauging interest either way, I believe it. And there's probably a lot of phone calls about like, hey, now that you don't have a quarterback anymore, what about some of your other players? What would you need to get Danielle Hunter off your team? Or what would you need to get away Alex Madison? Or somebody probably got bold and said something about JJ. But, I don't know. I would love to see just a few screenshots of some of the messages the coaches and the GM got over this course of time.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be mind-blowing.
It'd be funny.
Sure it'd be amazing.
And, I mean, even on Twitter, seeing all of the options that were thrown out there, I think some of them were joking, but, like, even down to, like, hey, we have a quarterback on the team already that knows the system, and he's only a few years older than Kirk. And they're talking about our coach,
Yeah,
who is long past his playing days. But I don't know. I took that as a joke, but there's probably somebody out there. Let us know if you are one of those that seriously thought Kevin O'Connell should have been a player coach.
that would have been interesting.
I don't even know. I would almost guarantee the rules would disqualify that from happening in today's modern NFL. But, I mean, talk about a storyline. That would have been crazy.
Yeah, seriously, that would have been crazy.
And Tom Brady, even if no option is ever 0%, I'm sure someone in that organization, even if it was a joke to Kwesi, said something about Brady's name. It could have been as much as, like, who knows, maybe somebody called Brady's agent. We'll never know. But you gotta at least see, right? Like, and I don't know where his contract, where he stands contractually. Do the Buccaneers still hold his rights? They might.
I have no
either
idea.
way, it doesn't.
I think we all just breathed a sigh of relief when he retired, and we're like, oh, finally.
Although it would have been this podcast would have been very different if we're talking about a Tom Brady signing. Again, I never believed that was a true option, but you never know.
What would we have talked about immediately following the wake of the Brett Favre signing? I mean, what would that conversation have been like between us? Because we were in college at that point.
Yeah, I remember. Because if you go back to that Brett Favre signing in 2009,
there was a lot of fanfare.
Well, absolutely, but there was also the previous offseason when he eventually was traded to the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of media coverage and rumors flying around and apparently it was real, that he was interested the year before, 2008, coming to the Vikings because he had retired at the end of the 2007 season, and then at some point decided he wanted to come back, and the Packers were like, no, like we got Aaron Rodgers, we're ready to move on. I think they offered him a spot in like the front office, and eventually traded him to the Jets. But at that time, I think when he realized that he wasn't going back to the Packers, he had his sights set on the Vikings. So there was already a little bit of buzz that season. Then he went to the Jets and then, retired again. But then I don't think he was under contract. So it was just like, hey, I do want to play in Vikings. You do want me. And it turned into another magical season that also ended in a loss in the NFC Championship game. We don't have to talk about that. But yeah, we would have had episodes on this podcast talk about after that Week 3 Niners game of the 2009 season when,
Greg Lewis,
Favre to Greg Lewis, and oh my heavens, Paul Allen. And we wouldn't have talked about anything other than that play. Just like this episode, we might not talk a whole lot about the Packer game other than, Kirky Kirk and his Achilles.
Should we talk about it, though, just a little bit?
Absolutely.
It was a pretty good game.
I mean, our favorite team went to Lambeau.
And won.
And won by 2 full touchdowns.
We were up 24-3 at one point.
Yeah. And, I mean, Kirk threw for like 274 yards, 275, something like that. 2 touchdowns. And they were driving. I mean, he could have ended with 303 touchdowns if not for that freak injury. But Jordan Addison looked great. And actually, you might be surprised to hear, I was looking at the stats earlier. Addison was third on the team in reception yards.
Yeah, because KJ had 99.
Yeah. He would have got to 100 too, if not.
And then did TJ have like 80 something?
Yeah, TJ had 88, I believe. So TJ had 88 and a touchdown. KJ had 99 and some clutch catches. One big catch in the second half, I think on the first drive of the second half to get things moving again. And then Jordan Addison, he's proving that this team can roll when you lose the best wide receiver in the game of football. You're still not out of luck completely. I'm not saying Jordan Addison is JJ. Like, that would be absurd. But when you have that confidence.
He quickly silenced Jair Alexander, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there have been times in that matchup between JJ and Alexander where Alexander's had the better game.
Yeah.
And I think some of that was a product of like some double teams and things like that the Packers threw at him to try and disrupt JJ. But Addison had his number.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
Absolutely. And I think that after the game,
it got chippy in the fourth quarter. Like, Alexander was like grabbing him and trying to throw some haymakers before the refs got there and broke it up.
Yep. And after the game, I think Alexander, I'm not going to be able to remember the quote exactly, but he said something to the tune of, "Oh yeah, his performance, it was a fluke performance, and I really wasn't even covering him that much." But I think when he was covered directly on, when it was Jair and Addison was 3 receptions for 3 targets and 50 yards, and I think his touchdown came against Jair. So yeah, he had a good game, and 3 catches for 50 yards against one dude is pretty good. Yeah.
Did Randy Moss ever leap at Lambeau?
I'm sure he did.
I know he leapt at the Metrodome.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
I feel like he had to have. We'll have to go back and find footage of that. But it was awesome to watch Jordan Addison Lambeau leap.
Yep.
And we actually used it as the kind of the intro video today.
Yeah.
For today's podcast. But my favorite part was the fake leap into the group of Packers fans, and the Packers fans were like, "No."
Which we would do the same thing. If we were sitting right there and a bear tried to leap up into us, we'd be like, "No, get out of here."
For sure. But then he finds a little pocket of Vikings fans and he jumps up there, and
I'm sure
I'm
sure those Vikings fans like have season tickets right there and just go to every game, or every Vikings game at least, and sit right there. And maybe there's 2 groups on either side of the stadium
for the hope that a player might jump up there for him.
Or maybe they're even like out of town, like Green Bay living non-Packer fans, and they just wear the away jersey of every team, and that's something I would do. And just like, yeah, come leave to us.
Regardless of who those people were, it was awesome.
Yep.
And it was cool to see the Vikings win at Lambeau.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we haven't won at Lambeau recently, but
I feel like I don't have the numbers in front of me. I feel like the Vikings in recent memory have done pretty good against the Packers in the last 4-ish, 5-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember, was it last year or the year before, Dalvin Cook had a really good game in Lambeau, and we won by a pretty good margin. This game, it was the Vikings' first win of more than one score of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice to see. Everything about this game was amazing, and they're knocking on the door of being awesome. Granted, against a Green Bay team that is not the top of the league, but then you get the end, and it's just like, what do we do now? My kids were all excited. Oh, ice cream, ice cream. And I was just sitting there like, there's 2 minutes left in the game. We're going to beat them by 2 touchdowns, and I could care less. Like, this sucks.
It was a heartbreaking moment. And not just for the fact that a really good player went down, but a really good guy went down.
It's times like this, I wish Kirk Cousins was a jerk. You know, I wish I can't even say, like, this is the kind of thing that happens to, like, Deshaun Watson. Like, that's what you want to happen to a horrible person. And Kirk, unless it's all an act, which I don't think it is, Kirk is genuinely one of the most likable players in the NFL. He's got to be. He's like what Tim Tebow could have been if Tebow was good.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right? Like, not even just the whole, like, being a Christian thing, but, like, being a good dude. Like, helping people out, and you're never going to read about Kirk Cousins getting arrested, being too drunk at a club. Like, no, he goes home and like reads books to his sons like after the game. It's like that again, unless it's an act.
At TCO,
yeah,
on a little scooter with his hobbled leg
Mm-hmm.
propped up, like signing autographs and passing out candy to kids for Halloween.
Mm-hmm. I saw that on Twitter, and you know what else I noticed about that? That wasn't a team PR post.
No.
That was like
He was in like a Duluth hoodie,
Yeah.
like had no Vikings stuff on at all,
Mm-hmm.
and he probably volunteered to be there. No
Yeah.
one told him he had to be.
I mean, yeah, and maybe he was already like obligated before, but I mean, Kirk's the kind of guy that's like, well, can I walk? Like, yes, I told people I would be there. I don't know what the event was specifically for, or if it was like a charity thing or what. It was for kids, so that's all that really matters. But and the way that the post got out was, I think, just one of the kids' dads was like, hey, check this out, Kirk Cousins, he's still like severely injured, and he's
still here
talking to my kid right now. It, like I said, it wasn't the team's PR Twitter handle like, oh, look how great our quarterback is, he's here for us. Like, I don't think they posted anything. Maybe reposted what the main guy did. But
another thing that really kind of indicated to me how much not just the Vikings community embraces him, but his teammates, was Dalton Reisner's post-game interview. Like, I've mentioned his post-game interview specifically on the podcast a few times now because he's a newcomer and he's, not been around for very long. He's acclimating still to his teammates and the playbook and all of that. And Dalton Reisner has had nothing but good things to say about the entire team. But then this happens. Kirk blows his Achilles, and Dalton Reisner just kind of is like, we all love this guy.
Yeah.
Like, we're deeply hurt. Like, we're happy to get a victory, but it comes with this cloud of uncertainty, and we're just hoping for the best and hoping that he can get healed up and recovered, and we'll just see what happens. And you could tell, like, even Kevin O'Connell after the game was a little tight-lipped. Like, we're not going to say anything, but, we all knew what had happened.
Yeah, he even, I mean, right after the game, I think he was talking with Ben Lieber on KFan, and he said something like, yeah, we're fearing Achilles, but we'll get more information after the MRI. But, like, I don't know. That had to have been the quietest Vikings locker room after a win at Lambeau ever.
Very somber, I'm sure.
One thing I really like, since KOC has been the coach, after a win, the team does it's almost cheesy, but I love it. It makes you run through a brick wall, where they like film the 2-minute KOC giving the game ball a speech, and he's just running around. He doesn't stop moving the whole time.
He just paces back and forth.
He's always just like, yeah, this guy. I think about KJ, he's like, we couldn't quite get him to 100, but he gave KJ a game ball, and well deserved. And I mean, you could just tell this was the most deflated game ball ceremony he's ever had, and it's just, you understand. And people are still cheering, like, yeah, good job, man, for getting the game ball. But like, I don't know. I don't know how you can rally the troops after that. And I'm sure if anybody can, maybe it's got to be Kirk. I think I saw something, maybe it was after coach's press conference on Monday. I think Kirk said he's still planning on being in the facility and almost being like a coach in the meeting rooms and stuff like that, which, I mean, if he is the leader that he seems to be for these guys, that's the best thing you can do, is be there, especially for Jaron Hall, or if they do make the switch, which we can talk about that a little bit later. But it's only going to be most helpful in the quarterback room. He's going to be a de facto quarterback coach this year, and I'm going to say my stance right here. I hope he's back, I hope they find a way to compensate him appropriately while still not making a decision on, like, just off emotions. But I hope he's back as the quarterback of the Vikings next season.
Well, that kind of leads into it might be a hot take. It might not be.
Bring it.
let's recap really quick. We've covered a little bit of this, but I feel like some context is necessary before my take. So we know that Kirk is an amazing dude, right? And we saw that long before this injury. I'd say even long before the quarterback documentary came out. Like, just a team player through and through. He's always there for his guys. He's grown and he's matured since his days in Washington, and I think he's learned a lot. And he's grown as a player too. Like, he's just, I mean, he was playing some of his best football of his career in these last 5 3/4 of a game. Arguably top 5 in the league, playing extremely well at a very high level. And so I guess all of that to say, we know that he's a team guy. We know that all the guys on the team love him. And we know that he's just a natural leader. I mean, we were just talking about those post-game game ball things. A lot of times, coach hands it over to Kirk to break down the troops, and it's Vikes on 3, and then they break, and it's Kirk who's in the center of that huddle breaking down his team. So we know all of that, and obviously his season is over now. And there's a lot of regrouping that's going to happen, a lot of conversations that will have to happen. We also know that he's going to be in the quarterback room. He's going to be on the sideline. I think Cam Bynum was even quoted saying somewhere this last week, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the sideline with his helmet on, listening to the plays, right? Like, that's just who we know Kirk to be. He was doing that in preseason, right? Like, he's not a Marcus Mariota who's gonna just like, oh, I got benched, so see ya, I'm out of here. Oh, I tore my Achilles. Well, and honestly, like, not necessarily throwing shade at Aaron Rodgers, but like, he's not even gonna go sit up in the box with the owners. Like, he'll be on the sidelines. He'll be in the meeting rooms. He will be, like you said, effectively a coach for the rest of this season, supporting Jaron Hall, supporting Josh Dobbs, supporting Mannion or Mullins or whoever else we might find under center for the Vikings this year. We just know that that's the natural role that he'll find himself in. And we've also kind of briefly mentioned, this is the other part of the context here, that things are complicated moving forward. His contract expires in 5 months, almost 5 months to the day today, March 31st. His contract is void. JJ has more or less implied, he hasn't said it explicitly, but he's implied that he's not signing anything until he knows what Kirk's going to do.
Or at least what his quarterback situation is going to look like.
Right, which, again, I think the reading between the lines a little bit is like, well, what are you guys going to do with Kirk? Are you going to move on from him, or are you going to sign him? Is he going to stay here? And not just JJ, but then you've got a handful of other players that are going to need to be paid. Darisaw.
Yep.
Even I'm thinking guys like TJ.
TJ already got his contract.
Did he?
Yeah, over the, remember it was the pretend back soreness.
That's right.
Yeah,
that kind of went under the radar.
Well, once those dollars came in, he was fully healthy.
But
Danielle Hunter, who's
Reisner is, I mean, he's on a 1-year contract right now, and he's already earned a starting spot after being brought in week 3 or week 4 or whatever it was.
Yeah, same as Akers, same week as Akers.
Yeah. And he's another one that could potentially deserve a contract if he performs well over the home stretch of the season here. So Kirk's going to effectively be a coach this year, and the contract situation next year is really, really complicated. So here's my take that I don't think anybody's really talked about. It's probably one of the least likely scenarios, but I could see it happening, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I could see Kirk trading the football helmet for a baseball hat. I could see him trading the football pads for a hooded sweatshirt, a headset, standing on the sidelines, and actually being a paid coach for the Vikings, because Kirk loves Minnesota, and he said that pretty much since he got to Minnesota. I love it here. I want my family to be here. He likes raising his kids there. He loves the organization, and that's never been more apparent than it has been now. He loves the team, and the team loves him. And now that he's endured a fairly significant injury at age 36, I could see him saying, you know what, risk-reward ratio isn't worth it. Maybe it's time for me to hang up the cleats, and now that I've got some experience on the sideline coaching, you know, maybe I can have an impact here. Maybe I can, you know, help some of these young guys improve in their game and be a coach instead of a player.
Yeah.
Pretty unlikely, I think, at this point. I still think he has some football in him, and I want him to play football. I'm not saying that I don't want him to play anymore.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it the other day, and I was just like, man, that could be a scenario that plays out, and it would shock a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would shock a lot of people in the Vikings organization. I think even Kwesi and Kevin might be like, really?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Like, we'll have a job for you. We've got a spot for you if you want it, but you sure you don't want to just, you know, go out there for a couple more years? So
I think it's not crazy to think that Kirk, the leader, could play or put himself into a position to become Kirk, the coach. I think knowing what we've witnessed from him and the way he's kind of played out his contracts over the years, he's very savvy.
Oh, yeah. He's a businessman.
Yes. Sure. And good for him. Every player should try to fight for and get every dime they can while they're physically able to do. So with that in mind, I feel like if Kirk has any fuel left in the tank, quarterback playing wise, even if it's not with the Vikings, he's probably going to pursue that. But one thing I feel like I hear, and maybe it's just because I'm a Vikings fan, it's the only team that I die hard follow, but one thing I feel like I hear a lot about players who are recently retired or going to retire soon, they say something to the tune of like, I mean, Minnesota's my home, so regardless of wherever else I might go, like I'm going to put roots down and be in Minnesota. I mean, we could probably think about it and name off a handful of players that are still around, even though they weren't born and raised in Minnesota. After their playing days are still around. So I feel like even if, you know, regardless of when Kirk's Minnesota career is over, unless it's 10 more years in Minnesota, unless it's like a final 100% done, he probably will make Minnesota his home, or Michigan. I know he's from that. I don't think he was born there. I think he was born in the Chicago area, but he's essentially from the Michigan area. He'll probably be a Minnesotan forever. I feel like he's probably going to try to play for as long as he can. Although I don't think he's going to be a Tom Brady, not accolade-wise, but like playing time-wise. I don't think he's going to be playing 10 years from now.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers that are like so wrapped up in football that he can't walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not even a Brett Favre, where like Brett Favre was just kind of greedy almost.
Yeah, I feel like
I've still got this desire to play, and I'm gonna pursue it even if it's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, we got one good season out of him in Minnesota, and then that second season was not so good.
That was deflating season.
Anyways, no, I agree with you completely. I think Kirk still has a lot of football left in him. I don't want him to leave as a player, but at the same time, like I could see him making a business decision and saying like, we're going to be at an impasse when it comes to contract negotiations. I'm going to be more expensive than you can afford on the roster in order to keep this group together. And I think that's a high priority for the Vikings.
Seems to be. I mean, the competitive rebuild part of it is being able to rebuild and load up the team and a part of that is keeping the pieces that you have that you want to keep.
And I think that only plays to the Vikings' advantage, though, too. Like, I mean, even if the rest of this season isn't a loss, and then moving into future seasons, like if you can have this core group of guys that would do anything for each other, like, man, you'd be pretty unstoppable. And then if you can keep your coaching staff intact, we may lose our defensive coordinator after this season to a head coaching position somewhere, and rightly so. He deserves that, and he's already proven in 6 games that he deserves.
Yeah, he's turned the performance around.
For sure.
Something has clicked for that defense.
Yeah, they're playing super well.
Oh my gosh.
I just saw something the other day. We went from being 32nd in the league in turnovers to like 4th.
Nice.
So, like, he's solved the turnover issue. Like, turnovers were the name of the game in the first 3 games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why we lost those 3 games. We turned the ball over
and
so
it's still a
dang much.
nagging problem. It's just not as huge as it was.
Well, and our offense is clicking now, too. And our defense is taking the ball away, which helps.
Yeah.
So
Josh Metellus, man, that interception was beautiful.
that was awesome.
Oh, man.
That was great. Well, and I think it might have been Jonathan Vilma, one of our favorite broadcasters.
Does he even watch? Does he prepare for the teams that he's about to announce for? Sorry, Jonathan Vilma is not a good TV voice.
I agree with you. But he did say something that I was kind of like, yeah, he's kind of right. He was talking about Josh Metellus after that play and basically said, like, he plays almost every position. Like, he's a safety, he's a linebacker. They'll throw him on the edge of the defensive line and he'll rush the quarterback at times. Like, he's kind of a Swiss Army knife. He's kind of the next Harrison Smith almost that can, like, play anywhere, do anything, and is a big playmaker in those big moments when you got to have it.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, he's one of those core guys that I would put under that list of guys that you want to keep around. And thank the Lord they signed him. Was it for a 3-year extension, 2 or 3 year extension before the season started? So he's around for a little bit, but hopefully a lot more, you know. And yeah, that core that you're talking about, it's got to be JJ, it's got to be Darisaw, and then after that, Danielle Hunter, Metellus, you want to keep around. I don't know who else would you put in that core of players you need to keep around.
TJ,
and he's locked up for a good handful of years at this point now. Jordan Addison he's on his rookie year, so he's here for at least 3 or 4 more seasons, depending on how they do what's the year?
rookie deal.
But the
4 or 5 year
option
contract.
year. That's what I was
the 5th
thinking.
year option. Yeah.
So yeah, there's some guys that aren't immediately leaving that you can think of, other than Kirk, and that was already kind of an iffy scenario this time last week before the injury. Just he was playing himself into a Mahomes type contract, at least per year average money. If he would have kept up what he was doing, he would have played himself into the MVP conversation. Vikings could have done some amazing things, which the door's not slammed shut on some cool stuff this season, but yeah, there's some questions.
Well, let's talk about the next guy up.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a couple of options, and the Vikings have already indicated that Jaron Hall will start this week against the Falcons. So that's a known, but they also traded yesterday for Josh Dobbs,
who apparently, I didn't know this before yesterday, he's super smart. He interned at NASA, where did he go? Tennessee. He's got his degree is something super smart sounding. I should know this, but apparently he's really smart and picked up the Browns offense over the offseason and then was traded to the Cardinals and has started. I mean, it's not like he's been lighting up the league. The whole Cardinals team has not been lighting up the league, but got down their offense really quickly.
He's thrown more touchdowns than interceptions.
Yeah.
That's nice.
He's more mobile. I guess
He has more rushing touchdowns than Kirk.
He has more rushing touchdowns than Alexander Madison. But I don't think Madison has any rushing touchdowns. I think Josh Dobbs has 3 rushing touchdowns this year, which is more than Cam Akers, who should be more than RB1.
Anybody on the Vikings.
Absolutely.
This year.
So, yeah, to your point, we know it's going to be Hall against the Falcons. And my thought is that at this point, it's probably Hall's job to lose.
That's certainly what it seems like. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made the trade.
Well, yeah, and people are questioning like, oh, they don't trust Jaren Hall because they did make a trade for a quarterback. They only have one quarterback. They would have had 2 guys that they could have dressed against the Falcons if they didn't make any move at all. Because Nick Mullins, he's still on IR. I don't think he is even able to come back off of IR until 2 games from now.
Something like that, but yeah.
And that's if he's fully healthy and ready to go. So let's just assume that's the case because we haven't really heard anything different. But Nick Mullins, and then you have Sean Mannion, who they could have easily, elevated for a game or 2. And I don't know, they still might. I guess you probably would, because Josh Dobbs today was his first practice. I mean, and it was a walkthrough today being Wednesday again. So he hasn't even worn pads for the Vikings yet. So he may not be active after being in Minnesota for like 4 days. So it still may be Sean Mannion backing up Jaren Hall. And if Hall comes out and has a day like, who was it, Will Levis did for the Titans this past weekend, 4 touchdowns. I'm not saying I expect that to happen. It's probably going to be some growing pains. I expect maybe a rough game, win or lose. We're not going to be singing Jaren Hall's praises overly. Like, he's not going to be a Pro Bowler after this weekend probably. But if he does, if he looks good, I can't imagine you make the switch immediately. I mean, Josh Dobbs will at that point have only been in the town for less than 2 weeks, and Nick Mullins may not be fully healthy. I don't know. They may end up signing another quarterback depending on how things go.
There's a lot of upside, right? I mean, offensive line has finally kind of solidified. I think the offensive line looked the best that it had all season.
Oh, yeah.
At Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I think Reisner has proven that he's a starter, and obviously that he's cemented his place there because they traded away Ezra Cleveland.
Yeah, which they would not have done if Reisner was looking wishy-washy.
Exactly. And Ed Ingram's kind of shaped up. Bradbury's back and healthy.
Yeah.
And on either side, on the edge, you've got 2 guys that are just
one of the best tackle tandems
awesome.
In the league.
Yeah.
I mean, if not the best. Yeah. Oh, thank goodness for Bradbury. I was starting to think like this could be it for his career. So a back injury that could still happen at any point, but it's been a few weeks now. Bradbury's been playing and playing well, like better than he ever has before. I don't know what happened. Maybe he's finally feeling okay. I don't know. But
I've seen a few replays on Twitter that have focused on him specifically. And just his ability to stick with a guy deep into a play, or take a guy that's way bigger than him and just manhandle him. Like, he's playing really well, and he played really, really well against the Packers.
Yeah, well, and having an experienced and confident center is only going to make your rookie quarterback's job that much better. Because like we've said before, it's not a secret, the center makes a lot of the calls for the offensive line depending on what they're seeing. And it seems like that's another thing that Dalton Reisner brings to the table is he sees the game well and can pick up on like what guy he needs to block and how the blocking scheme needs to work. But for Jaren Hall, we can talk about Jordan Addison being a great asset for him. The whole J group, the KJ, TJ, JJ, everybody, that's only going to make Jaren Hall or whoever's starting at quarterback their job so much easier. But having Bradbury right in front of him making blocking calls, that could be the biggest scheming point of Jaron Hall's success.
Well, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is, right, like our offensive line is now really, really good. Almost, like I would say almost elite. Like playing at a very high level. And then you have a lot of skilled players that are just awesome. And we're going to get Justin Jefferson back as early as the Saints game. Nothing has been indicated yet, but that would be the earliest he could come back, if I'm counting 4 weeks correctly,
I think so,
from his injury. So not this week against the Falcons, but possibly next week against the Saints. Addison has played really well. TJ's played really well. KJ, Jordan Powell, like
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to KJ's point too, I've been a critic of him this whole season, and he looked really good against the Packers, and we've seen him look really good. I think he just had the yips or whatever for a little bit, and hopefully now he's back to being really good again.
He might have been a little bitter that Addison came in and kind of snatched up that wide receiver 2 role that he was kind of hoping to snatch from Thielen when he was traded away. And, you know, who knows? But yeah, he has been coming on as of late, and that's only going to help whoever's under center, Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs, the other guys.
Yeah. I think the best case scenario is, obviously you want every player to look amazing and be Pro Bowlers, but I hope Jaron Hall never lets this job go. And then if he does, we're going to be fully confident and fully supporting Josh Dobbs or whoever is playing, because I mean, we're fans. We like to like our team, but like, I hope Jaron Hall is good. I want him to be good.
He's got a lot of things working in his favor, not just on the field, but I think off the field too. He's been in this organization since he was drafted. He did all of the OTAs and training camp and preseason and everything. And he's sat on the sidelines with an earpiece listening to the plays being called into Kirk, watching Kirk make the plays that he's made, watching Kirk play at an elite level. So I think he's got all of the upside. So.
Yeah. And, I mean, he threw 4 passes against the Packers.
Completed 3 of
them. Yeah, he was sacked from behind and, you know, was forced to fumble it. And
Reisner, in his post-game interview, kind of admitted, like, he was like, yeah, that was our fault. We need to do better.
There you go.
And he kind of spoke up and just supported Jaron Hall, like, yeah, like, we're behind him, we've got him, and that one sack, that was our fault. We need to do better to protect him. But yeah.
I to that point too, I think all of this support for Kirk in the locker room, seeing JJ tweet or quote tweet Kirk's tweet about, you know, the cast on his leg, he said something like, "Love you, man," like, seeing all this support for Kirk is only going to also be focused right at Jaron Hall or whoever the quarterback is, because they're just going to want to elevate that guy the way that they would love to have elevated Kirk, like they were. You know, they were starting to play so good. This team was getting there. It was getting scary, kind of like the Lions turning into a good team in the second half of the last season. The Vikings were figuring stuff out, and that can still happen. It's just you're not going to have the juggernaut, non-injury
you're not gonna have the same
guy.
amount of production from the quarterback position probably as you would have. And it might take a few games for that chemistry to develop, for that timing to develop between the quarterback and the receivers, the quarterback and the center, the quarterback and the running backs.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs are both highly mobile.
Yeah, way more mobile than Kirk.
And they're not necessarily going to be the traditional pocket passer. They're going to be able to improvise and move and get out of some of those hairy situations like we see Patrick Mahomes do all
Did
the
you
time.
just compare Jaron Hall to Pat Mahomes?
No, I'm just saying that.
Oh, you compared Josh Dobbs to Pat Mahomes. Okay.
Boy, wouldn't it be nice though?
Oh man.
But I mean, you talk about a quarterback who came in relief of someone else who had gone down injured and turned out to be this amazing player. Patrick Mahomes came in for Alex Smith, did he not?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because
And-
Smith got that gruesome leg injury when he was already with Washington. But I think, yeah, Mahomes, he didn't start his whole rookie year.
Yeah, he sat behind Alex Smith
Mm-hmm.
and then lost his starting, or Alex Smith lost his starting job to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah, officially we're saying Jaron Hall is on the Pat Mahomes level. I can't even say that with a straight face.
you heard it here first.
All right, so that's probably about it for the Packer game. Hopefully we beat them again later in the season.
They did not look good.
No,
They were a bad team.
they
And
looked awful.
They made a lot of penalties, a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm. I
Just
tweeted
ugly.
something like, man, I wonder how those Packer fans that were clamoring for Aaron Rodgers to get traded, I wonder how they're feeling right now, because Jordan Love, he is not Aaron Rodgers.
No.
And that's a whole different situation than the Vikings are in, because Love, he's healthy. He's been there. What's this, his third, fourth year?
Yeah.
He's been there. He's been in the room with Aaron Rodgers. He's been with the same coaches Aaron Rodgers had. I think a lot of Packers fans assumed like maybe there'd be some, step down, but yeah, this guy, he's going to step right in. He's not going to make the same mistakes Rodgers does. That's not how it works when you have your Hall of Fame quarterback leave the organization. Look at the Patriots right now. I mean, the last couple of years for the Patriots.
Well, the Patriots look terrible too.
Oh, yeah. They're like enough that people might get fired, which is crazy to say. But, I mean, yeah, this Packer game, it was fun. It was really fun until it wasn't. It felt a lot like the Niners game until it didn't. We hope the best for Kirk. But unfortunately, this team needs to move on.
Yep. And we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot to happen just in this season still. Who knows? We could still be a playoff team. Very much on the table, especially after getting to 4-4 this last week. We got to that 500 mark. I mean, we could still go on to be in that wild card hunt.
Very well could.
So
Hopefully, I feel like the way the rest of the team is playing, even with not terrible quarterback play, you could do some stuff. You could win some games and hopefully be relevant come playoff time. Hopefully. Otherwise, you're looking at a decent draft pick for next year. I'm not rooting for the team to lose, but I mean, if they have a decent draft pick, apparently there's some good quarterbacks coming in the draft. You never know.
I saw something and I agree with the tweet or whatever. I saw that like the Vikings are too good of a team to tank at this point. Like there's no point in throwing in the towel. Obviously the trade deadline has now passed and we did not just trade everybody away.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of hope left despite a very gruesome and possibly career-ending injury to Kirk.
Yeah.
That's
Potentially. I mean, hopefully not, but
hopefully not. But I mean,
also just to beat this dead horse, Kirk. Yeah, it came out yesterday or something that Aaron Rodgers, reached out and talked to Kirk about, they have both suffered the same injury, which is nice. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is an actual like halfway decent dude overall, whatever.
I'm sure he is.
But in Kirk's own locker room, Cam Akers is coming off of an Achilles injury.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a big reason why he wasn't productive last year is because he tore his Achilles.
Huh.
So there's another guy who can go put his arm around Kirk and be like, I have been there.
Yeah.
And Akers, he's in a position, and he looks fine, health-wise now. He's in a position that requires you to be very physical and athletic. And that Achilles, I'm assuming, is a very big part of being athletic.
Yeah.
So I would assume Cam Akers can be another point of support and knowledge and, hey, you should do this. I didn't do this, but you should do this. Or, hey, don't do this because it didn't work for me. Stuff like that. Just another positive note in the recovery of Kirk Cousins aspect. I meant to say that earlier, but I forgot.
I had no idea. That's interesting. And it's also remarkable considering how well he's played. I mean, we've been singing Cam Akers' praise since he got to Minnesota. Like, give him the ball more. He looks so good.
Yeah.
He makes big plays.
I still stand by that.
Oh, I agree. I thought Madison looked better this week.
Yeah.
We still didn't even rush for 100 yards.
No, I think it was like 60 total. Still not a great rushing performance, but
No.
first rushing touchdown of the year.
And it was Cam Akers that had it. So, yeah, I don't know. A lot of room to improve there. The Vikings are by far one of the worst teams running the ball in the league. It's definitely an area to improve.
Absolutely.
But maybe that improves with a more mobile quarterback. I don't know.
Maybe you rely on the rush more than you've had to.
Yeah.
Because who cares if the rushing isn't working because Kirk's slinging it,
Right.
But now, I don't know.
You don't have Kirk slinging it anymore.
Could get ugly.
You don't want to be slinging interceptions and get back to leading the league in turnovers because that's a pretty dark place to be.
Yep. So this Falcons game.
Yeah.
This coming week, they're going to Atlanta, right? Or no, this would be...
Yes, we have this. This is one of two two-game road trips.
Okay.
We're at Green Bay and now at Atlanta before we come home to play the Saints next week.
Got it. Okay. So it's a noon game. What do we got? Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
Former all-time Viking preseason player. He always looked good in the preseason. The Vikings saw him last year against the Commies.
Yep.
When even the refs were trying to tackle the Vikings players.
I remember that.
But yeah.
He played pretty well last year for Washington.
Yeah, he's always been a guy that's up and down, and I feel like for whatever reason, wherever he is, once he does one poor thing, it's like, oh, he's out. Let's pull him out. Like, people don't believe in him. I'm not saying they should. I don't know, but that just seems like the case. Like, people just are quick to pull him out. So hopefully he doesn't look good against the Vikings this coming week. I don't know. It's always nice when you can say, hey, a backup quarterback's coming in, like the Falcons will be saying about the Vikings. This defense is playing well, and I think it behooves the defense to take advantage of the backup quarterback coming in. Which, again, you can say that about the Falcons defense against the Vikings too, but I don't know. I feel good about this game-ish. All things considered, I feel decent about it. And I'm not saying they're going to go in and win and dominate, but they're not just going to quit. So
there would certainly be more challenging games on the schedule to play immediately after a Kirk Cousins injury, like playing the Chiefs or playing the Niners and having to, face those giants without your guy under center.
Yeah, I can imagine as a player in the locker room, you could be thinking all this and then look up and say, well, geez, now we've got the Eagles and we're going to the Eagles. Now we got to try to beat a juggernaut right now. Like, I feel like the Falcons are, I guess I don't know how the Falcons are playing this year.
They're 4-4.
Okay, so the same as the Vikings. I feel like they're not one that's making the Vikings shake in their boots.
No.
Like, it's not, oh, we lost Kirk and now we have to play this Falcons team. Like, I feel like there's still a winning mentality when you're looking at this game, even with Jaron Hall.
Yeah, well, in last weekend, even the week before, you look at the next several games and they're all winnable. Not saying that the Vikings will win those games, but the potential to win is there. It's not a Chiefs, Eagles, Niners, like, oof, man.
Yep.
This is going to be tough.
I mean, we went through last podcast and talked about what were there, 5 games left?
Yep.
What would the Vikings record be? And I think you said going into the bye, the overall Vikings record would be 500. Above 500.
Yeah.
Are you still?
I'm still confident we can get there. I think Atlanta is a winnable game. It's indoor, and I think the turf in Atlanta is very comparable to the turf in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are challenges to playing on the road, but I don't know. I think it's a very winnable game, and then you come home against the Saints, who the Saints kind of had a little mini resurgence this last week. Their offense looked better than it has, but there's still a lot of question marks in New Orleans that they've got to figure out. And then where do we go after that?
Is it Denver?
Go to Denver and then Chicago at home before the bye. So Denver obviously shocked the Chiefs.
Yeah. But that's a division game too. Like, the Vikings are always going to play the Packers well. I mean, I guess that's probably the same thing. Broncos are always going to try to play the Chiefs well.
Yep.
Even though this is their first win against the Chiefs in like 16 or 17 games.
Yeah,
but still, it's not like they've been easy wins for the Chiefs every time.
Right. Well, the Broncos kind of just owned the Chiefs. I mean, it was pretty lopsided. So anyways, I guess all of that to say, it's certainly a week-to-week league, and you play every week to win the game, right? Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. And there's truth in that. It's a kind of a simple sentiment, but it's true. And I think the Vikings need to go out and continue to play to win these games and see what happens, and see if you can't build some confidence into a young quarterback. See if you can't surprise some people even without an MVP caliber quarterback who has been playing lights out. Like, I don't know, go out and play to win the game, see what happens.
Yeah. I expect the Falcons to be very blitz heavy against the inexperienced rookie Jaren Hall. That just seems like the thing that you do against a rookie that's never played before in the NFL. He's got some experience in college at BYU. But yeah, expect to see a lot of blitzes, probably a few sacks. Hopefully he can hold on to the ball and not throw some dumb interceptions.
Well, and if they're going to blitz a lot, see if you can get those backs involved, or even some of those receivers involved out of the backfield, throwing some of those screen passes. If everybody's coming off the line, well, then just go to the outside and see if you can gain some yards that way, or see if you can find some one-on-one matchups with Addison or TJ down the field and see if you can get some big chunk plays or even some nice touchdowns. And there are ways to combat that offensively if they're going to throw everything at you at the line. And the Vikings have learned that too, and Brian Flores, I think, has had to try to balance that out. You can't just throw 8 guys on the line every single time. And there are times that he'll put 8 guys or 9 guys up there, and then 4 or 5 of them back off.
I love when you see Harrison Smith like run up and then right before the ball is snapped, just sprint back, and it's like, oh geez, I wonder what that quarterback's thinking. To that point too, expect to see quite a few screen passes, quick passes. I think against the Packers, the Vikings had their most productive screen pass that I've ever seen the Vikings have. I think it was to Brandon Powell. Just a quick pass for like 20 plus yards. It was awesome. But yeah, those are, I feel like, easy, productive plays for a rookie quarterback to have and get some completions under his belt. So I would expect to see a bit of those during the game.
Keys to the game?
Yeah, so I've got 3. I think the number 1, first and foremost, is Jaren Hall. And by that, I mean, not just S in your pants the whole game, but he's going to have coach in his ear the whole game, or, whenever it's legal and their communication's working. His biggest thing is to trust Kevin O'Connell and just play the way he's been playing his entire life. I mean, football, yeah, sure, it gets harder when you're in the NFL, but it's still the same game. He has had success. He can be successful. He just needs to trust himself, but most importantly, trust Kevin O'Connell and do what he's told. And hopefully, because the rest of the team has proven they're going to have his back. The line's going to hold up. The receivers are going to catch I mean, for the most part, they're going to catch the balls if it's within reach. The game plan is going to be there, so he just needs to trust the process and play well. The defense, keep it up. Keep looking like they have been. Against the Packers, it was their second lowest total of blitzing this whole season. So they've kind of toned down the blitzing a little bit, and that might have just been against the Packers. I don't know how the game plan looks week to week, but maybe don't blitz so much if you're not getting home and it's opening up holes for the offense to succeed. Just defense, if they can look the way they did against the Packers, that'd be great.
Force turnovers.
Force some turnovers. That Josh Metellus turnover felt like it came at the perfect time, and then especially that first play that KOC called, they took a shot to the end zone, and it worked. It's what you're supposed to do. Big turnover, and then just dagger them. Yep. And it worked, and it was amazing. That was the turning point in the game. So, yeah, defense, keep looking good, and literally turnovers is my next key. Try to limit them on offense. I said before, and I'll still stand by it, if the Vikings go a whole game without turning the ball over, even with Jaren Hall or not Kirk Cousins, they will win the game because they're good enough everywhere else. So that's my thoughts. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I like what you said. I think Jaren Hall has to not just be a game manager, because I think that's what a lot of people are expecting him to be. Just, come in, manage the game, let everybody else do what they've been doing. And, at the quarterback position, you just can't do that and win games.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have to make some plays. You're going to have to make some throws. You might have to run the ball. You might have to, move around a little bit and try to elude some defenders and make some throws on the run. Don't just be a game manager, but play to win the game, right? Like we've already said. And I like what you said too. Yeah, trust the coaching. It'll be interesting because I think Kirk has this like vision for the field when he steps out there, and he's very savvy, and he can quickly audible and can quickly move guys around or change the blocking scheme for the offensive line and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see what a younger quarterback does with some of those tools and resources at the line, and if even O'Connell wants him to do some of that, or if he wants to keep it very vanilla, very simple, it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
But then, the defense, I would maybe argue against your point a little bit to blitz a little bit more. If Taylor Heineke is going to be playing quarterback for the first time this season for the Falcons, by the same logic that the Falcons might come after Jaren Hall, well, why wouldn't we go after their new quarterback? He's not a rookie. He's a little more experienced. He's been in the league for a while and kind of knows what to expect. But still, like, he hasn't been the one under center this season. Desmond Ridder has. And I don't know. Maybe Flores tries to take advantage of that. And maybe he's not blitzing 80% of the time, but maybe he's blitzing 5% more than he did at Green Bay, just to see if there's something to exploit there.
Yep. And you got to think Heineke, he's going to be pumped for this game. It's one of his former teams, and maybe one that he probably had the most chance to succeed in, but never really got the opportunity for various reasons. But yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Flores is going to come after him. But that excites me for this game, whereas in previous games I've been like, why are you blitzing so much when it's not working? Like, I think it'll work this game. DJ Wanham has turned something on. He had 2 sacks last game. Like, it's crazy how good he's looking.
Well, Wanham, Hunter, Phillips, like they've been playing really, really well up front. And they've got some depth there too, which is nice.
Yeah. For sure.
So it'll be an interesting game, a very intriguing game, and one that we here in Iowa don't get to watch, except you will, because you've got the NFL Sunday.
I'm pretty sure. Don't we have plans? We have vague plans that maybe...
I meant to talk to you about that. Man. So
all right,
can I come to your house to watch the game?
Yeah, I thought we already kind of talked about it. We kind of threw it out there, and we haven't talked about it in a few weeks, but
Let's make it official right now.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Your family,
at noon.
my family.
We'll do it.
I will have ice cream prepared. I will not prepare the ice cream. I will buy it from the store.
I'll bring the beer.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. That's kind of crazy. Will that be our first game that we're watching in person together since we started the podcast?
I feel like we've watched a game together this season, haven't we? Didn't you come over earlier this year? Didn't we watch a game here at my house?
I came over and we watched college football together.
That's right. I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Maybe this will be our first game since we started the podcast. That
Maybe.
could be true.
And you know what? We'll be together. Well, we got to at least do some TikTok or some mini episode or something. Like we can
we'll
figure something out. We'll get some content out there.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anything else about the Falcons? I think we've said that one. Do you think they'll win?
Yeah, I think they'll win. I don't see any reason why they won't. Both teams are coming in with question marks at quarterback. And I think the Vikings have a lot fewer question marks as a team than the Falcons do. And I think there's a whole lot more unity, and brotherhood, and just sheer love in that locker room. And I think these guys go out and fight for Kirk this week. Like, let's go out and win this one for him.
I hope that's the sentiment the whole rest of the season. Like, I hope Kirk gets a ring this year. Like, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but man, that'd be awesome. That'd be movie worthy. Hey, Cam Bynum. Let's get Cam Bynum some movie. All right, man. Well, if you think the Vikings are going to win or get completely demolished by the Falcons, let us know. Reach out to us. We're on TikTok, the Skol Hop, Twitter/X at the Skol Hop, Instagram at the Skol Hop, and Facebook the Skol Hop.
We're also on YouTube. We had our first video episode last week, so this will be our second video episode. So you can find us there as well. Drop a comment on one of our videos.
Yep.
Let us know what you think.
Yep. So, and I think the plan is to kind of mirror our TikTok page to YouTube Shorts and everything like that. But yeah, if you're one that enjoys video podcasts over audio podcasts, that will be an option because we'll have the whole podcast on YouTube as well.
That's true.
And who knows, maybe in the future we'll do some live podcasts on YouTube or Twitch or whatever. But yeah, there's plans to be made. So yeah, reach out. Let us know if you think we're right or crazy or anything. Tell us your favorite bread recipe. I don't care. This beer, what'd you think?
I liked it.
Citraculture from Adventurous Brewing.
It's a good one. It's a solid one.
It's one of my
to just sip on slowly and enjoy. Like I said, crisp, clean, easy drinking. I like it.
Yep, it's one of my favorites. Definitely one of my favorites of local beers. So, yeah, I'm never going to be sad if you hand me a Citraculture. All right, man.
I've got just a little bit left, so
until next time.
Skol.
Skol.